Homeschool, and today I'm going to share with you my brand new curriculum called Nurturing Connections in Reading Level A. So this particular curriculum is for beginning readers, and it covers phonological awareness, the alphabetic principles, so they'll be learning all of the capital letters and lowercase letters. It also goes over beginning phonics, so they will learn the most common sounds for each letter, along with blending activities to begin to read short words and also to learn how to write these words as well. So it's all integrated. It's the result of over 20 years of experience in education. So I used to be a public school educator. I was an educational consultant and reading specialist, and I literally worked with thousands of children and students and adults, teachers, throughout the state, along with my own children. So I took into account all of that experience along with what I know about how the brain best learns and how to support children with special needs and how to help struggling readers along the way. And I pulled all that together to create this system that I really hope will bless you and your family in helping your children better understand the building blocks of reading and how to pull it together to become better readers. So here's what makes this system different than anything else out there. The first thing that makes it unique is the sequence. And so you're not going to spend an entire week on the letter A, followed by a week of the letter B, followed by a week of the letter C. What I found with that particular approach is that a lot of children will forget all about letter A by the time they hit the letter D. It's isolated, it's not in context, and there's not the repetition that some children need in order to be successful. If it's working for your child, that's wonderful, but this approach integrates it all. And so it's taught in a sequence that makes sense. Blending starts occurring from the very beginning, so the children start to see how these letters and sounds make up words. And confusing letters are separated. So they'll learn the letter B, for example, in 1 week, and then weeks later they'll be introduced to the letter P, followed by the letter D, and there's plenty of practice in between so that they aren't getting those letters confused. I also introduce both the capital letter along with the lowercase letter at the same time. A lot of curricula will teach all the capitals first, then the lowercase letters. I found that when it's integrated, the children can easily make connections. So as an example of that, this is the letter A, for example, and the child will learn that A makes the sound like an apple tree. And so they'll go ahead and write the letter A on that apple tree and see how it looks very similar to that letter. And the lowercase a is like an apple that fell off of that apple tree, and it goes around and down. And so you can see those connections are made from the very, very beginning so that the child better understands the sounds, what the letters look like, and how they're connected. Now, as I mentioned before, blending activities take place every week. So every fourth lesson, there's some sort of a blending activity where the child will start listening for rhymes and start understanding how to blend together phonemes in order to read words. And so that happens fairly quickly, and it's something that is gently done. They can gain that confidence because there's plenty of repetition all the way through so that they can be successful as they're working through the curriculum. Number 2 is a multisensory approach. So all of us learn through either the visual sense, the auditory sense, or kinesthetic sense. Some of us tend to lean toward one way or another, but we have found through brain-based research that the more we integrate those senses, the easier learning is and the more children will retain. So we start off with the visual sense, for example. For the visual component, we use a variety of fonts from the very beginning, including Open Dyslexic, which is helpful for children with dyslexia. So they'll see different types of fonts throughout the text and throughout the curriculum that'll help them recognize it when they're reading. Another thing that I do for the visual learners is create these visual cues. And so they learn the shape of the letter through these visual cues, along with the most common sound that that letter makes. So the seal is for the letter S, and it looks like the letter S. The cookie is for the letter C, and it looks like the letter C. And it also, of course, makes a sound, cookie, which is the most common sound for the letter C. Another example here is for the letter B, which is bat, ball, ball, bat, and ball. And this again helps them so that when they come across the letter P or the letter D, they already have this visual in their mind to make that connection and to be able to distinguish between the two. As far as auditory sense is concerned, we do a lot of rhyming activities, auditory or oral activities, so they're listening to it constantly, they're hearing the sounds in the language. There's read alouds that are integrated in there as well and that are recommended so that the child can start making those connections between the words that they hear and the words that they're seeing as they read. So for the kinesthetic sense, we engage the movement of either the letters, and so they'll either have magnet letters or these little letter tiles, depending on what you choose to use, and they'll move them around to create the words. I also recommend using something like a salt tray where they can practice writing the letters in the tray. There's also physical movement activities, so they will hop or skip or jump to a particular letter based on the sounds that they're hearing. They'll create trails of letters that they'll follow around to review the sounds. And so there's a number of hands-on activities, cutting and pasting activities that will help integrate that sensory input so your child can better retain the information they're learning. Number 3 is novelty. So as much as the brain thrives on repetition and as much as it is a pattern-making device, that as it recognizes those patterns, it can retain more and more information, it also thrives on novelty. It loves seeing new ideas, new ways of learning things, and new concepts in order to remember what's most important. So I've integrated that novelty into this curriculum as well. There are pages with the visual cues in here, for example. You have very clean pages, again, for that visual learner. You have watercolor painting activities. You have handwriting activities here. They'll build the word with the actual letter tiles and then write them on a chalkboard, write them on the sidewalk. Here they're searching for objects around the house that begin with the letter S, and they're putting them on that spot. This is an example of a cut and paste activity for the letter C and S, and so forth. So a number of different activities. It makes it easy for the child to get excited about learning. It's not the same thing every single day. It's different all the way through. I also integrate these particular cards, and so for handwriting practice. So that's the next component here is handwriting. I do not have dotted letters for children to trace. I find that can be really, really confusing, especially for children with special needs. And so everything here is tracing something that is printed in a lighter color. There's always a dot there to guide them so they know exactly where to start. And these tracing activities begin specifically, of course, with their letter cards. So they begin by tracing the letters. They trace the outline of the pictures if they need that visual cue, and then they practice writing in boxes. This is easier for children who still don't have that fine motor skill that they need to be able to write on lines. And so it allows them to learn how to form those letters correctly in a way that's still safe and developmentally appropriate for them. So we do a lot of boxes and tracing activities, and as they're learning their words as well, then they start tracing those words. So all of these words are here. This is where they'll be adding on letters to make the words, and so forth. Now the last thing about this curriculum is that it is truly open and go. So each lesson has a small or short set of directions at the very top, along with the activity to complete underneath that. So very, very simple. It's easy to follow. There is a teacher's manual that just gives you the overview of the curriculum along with some troubleshooting tips if you have a child that struggles in any of those areas. But for the day-to-day activities and lessons, everything is right on the page for you. All you'll need to complete this particular curriculum is your booklet, your activity booklet. So this is 140 lessons. Each lesson takes anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes to complete. The curriculum also comes with your flashcards. And so you have your letter cards, one for each letter of the alphabet, along with your word cards. So the children will learn to read and write over 35 words. And so all of those are also included. You'll see that they're color-coded with the consonants and vowels to also help them further in that sense. It also requires alphabet letters. So you can choose to use magnet letters. If you do, I encourage you to get 2 to 3 sets of this. Or you can use letter tiles from something like Bananagrams. So we kind of just use these little tiles and move these around as needed, but you could use any set of alphabet letters that you may have on hand. And then the curriculum also goes through Big Thoughts for Little People. So I really like the connections that this particular book makes to biblical concepts and scriptures. And so as they're learning specific letters, then they will have a little discussion on what that letter means and some questions to consider and a scripture to tie it together. So this is integrated in the lessons. It's optional. If you choose not to use that, that's okay. I also included a book list that is also optional, but the book list includes 52 titles so that for each letter of the alphabet, you'll have 2 picture books to share with your child to, again, help bring together those connections. So you'll have books on seals, for example, or cookies and baseball and so forth. So all of that's optional, but that's it. That's all you need. You could get those books from the library or just use what you have in your own home library to bring it all together. But the goal of this is to create a love of reading, a love of learning, and an excitement for reading and language arts so that you can build on that in the future. So I'm going to flip the camera now, give you a quick little sneak peek of everything here. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below or send me an email at nurturingconnectionshomeschool@gmail.com.